The ceiling above the city of Kavakar was a lattice of living roots and phosphorescent lichen, but most eyes seldom lifted that high. Far more captivating were the bodies that glided through the tunnels, bodies painted by nature and ingenuity, skins scrolling with stories. In Kavakar, pigment, pattern, and scar were coin. A swirl of indigo lines at the wrist could purchase a week of food. A full-back historical tapestry might buy a dwelling. The art was never static. At any market corner, a person might pause, unzip a healed seam, and peel away a patch no bigger than a leaf, an excerpt of childhood laughter, a lover's perfume, the echo of a victory, to trade for something fresher, rarer, more prestigious. Lyra had grown up believing she would become a pattern monger like her mother, one who could flay memories from flesh without letting either the donor or the story bleed away. It took nimble fingers, knowledge of pigments brewed from subterranean fungi, and a heart steady enough to watch pain without flinching. At 17, Lyra possessed two of those three things. The third she had not yet tested. Her own body carried only modest currency. A lattice of green swirls on her calves, worth perhaps a month of grain, and a pair of midnight stars on her shoulders, commemorating her graduation from apprentice to journeyman. Enough to mark her as respectable, yet far from wealthy. Her mentor, Master Hallam, ran a stall in the lower grottos where stalactites dripped into copper bowls. Buyers liked the sound. It reminded them that time never stopped, so neither should their designs. On the morning the story truly began, Hallam beckoned Lyra with a tilt of his bald, heavily patterned head. "An uncommon commission," he whispered. "One that may elevate you, if your empathy does not undo you first." The client stood behind a privacy screen, a gaunt woman wearing a cloak sewn from discarded skin swatches, their faded patterns fluttering like tired moth wings. She introduced herself only as Cell. Her request, removal of a full torso mosaic that depicted a thing no one in Kavakar believed existed. Sunrise, spirals of gold, rose, and impossible blue stretched from collarbone to hip, woven with topographic memories of warm air and birdsong. Lyra stared as one might at contraband. Surface myths were forbidden. Possessing so vivid a memory could invite censure or worse, yet the woman wanted it excised and destroyed. "Not traded?" Hallam asked, carefully neutral. "Destroyed," Cell repeated, eyes the silver of tunnelfish. "I will pay with this." She drew back her sleeve to reveal a narrow strip above the elbow, a monochrome pattern of black dashes running parallel like tracks leading toward a vanishing point. Even from a distance, Lyra sensed its value. It was compressed memory, pure experience refined, a traveler's entire journey encoded in minimal strokes. Such density could ransom a small district. Hallam, practical to the marrow, agreed. "We begin at dusk," he said. When Cell left, he turned to Lyra. "I will perform the removal. You will burn the mosaic when I'm done." Lyra felt her breath tangle. The design called to her, thrumming like subterranean pipes. Each golden fleck promised warmth none in Kavakar had felt. To annihilate it seemed sacrilege. That night, Hallam anesthetized Cell with distilled cave lotus serum. Beneath lamplight, his scalpel danced. Skin parted with oily softness, revealing muscles dull crimson. Hallam worked like a cartographer, erasing coastlines from a map. Lyra dabbed blood, sutured edges, kept breathing. When the final seam was closed, the excised tapestry lay on a slate tray, still gleaming as if dawn were trapped beneath its slick surface. Hallam handed her a crimson-stained cloth. "To the furnace." The furnace glowed within a basalt chamber under the stall. Lyra descended, feeling each step shorten her future. She opened the iron door. Heat slapped her face. One more step, and she would fling the miracle inside. Instead, she hesitated, fingertips brushing the edge of sunlit skin. A burst of memory flared, the smell of wet grass, warmth on eyelids, the chorus of unseen insects. Tears seared her lashes. She closed the door without feeding it and folded the mosaic carefully, pressing it beneath her tunic against her ribcage. When she reemerged, Hallam nodded, assuming his order fulfilled. Sel had gone, escorted by Hallam's aide, leaving the strip of encoded journey as payment. Hallam examined it under glow moss, whistling at its compression. "A fortune in 8 centimeters, he said, then noticed Lyra's trembling. "First major excision, child? Go home. Sleep." Lyra obeyed outwardly, but her heart had already veered. She hurried through dripping corridors to her cell dwelling, bolted the tin door, and unwrapped the contraband. The pattern pulsed faintly. Surface myths claimed the sun could cure despair. Kavakar knew despair as intimately as lungs knew air. She longed to graft even a fragment onto her own body, but unlicensed self-surgery risked infection, scarring, or worse. If discovered, she would be flayed of every valuable inch and exiled. She spent the night studying the tapestry, how gold threads merged with rose, how blue curved like a horizon. Hidden among the spirals, she found micro-etchings, words incised so fine they looked like hairline cracks. Holding a crystal lens, she read them. "Remember the fire above. Remember the cost. Do not let them make you forget." By dawn, a word she tasted like sweet fungus, Lyra knew she could not destroy the tapestry, nor hoard it. It needed to live on flesh, breathing, telling, awakening. The question was whose? 2 days later, rumor rippled through the markets. Master Hallam was arrested for possessing subversive, surface iconography. The watch had found Sel's torso mosaic missing from the furnace, and guessed deceit. They ransacked Hallam's stall, seized the compressed journey strip, and chained him to a basalt pillar in the public rotunda. Lyra watched from a crack in the crowd, guilt chewing her stomach. She had doomed her mentor by mercy. Sel, too, had vanished. Some whispered she was watch herself, bait for traitors. Panic might have consumed Lyra, but news of Hallam's fate ignited a ferocity in her. If authority feared surface memories so much, they must be powerful indeed. And if skin patterns were currency, then truth was the most valuable pattern of all. She would mint it not for personal wealth, but to free Hallam, and perhaps Kavakar. She gathered resources, pigmented fungal oils, sterile blades, suture twine, the clandestine tapestry. She visited an old friend, Rix, a weaver who specialized in kinetic patterns that shimmered when muscles flexed. Rix owed her a favor for restoring a ruined commission last winter. "I need clandestine workspace and silence," Lyra said. "Tonight." Rix read the steely resolve in her eyes and nodded. The weaver's studio lay inside a hollowed geode whose crystals refracted lamplight, scattering rainbows across stone walls. Lyra spread the tapestry on a slate. Rix inhaled. "By the roots, is that—" "Help me section it," Lyra said. "Every person who carries a piece will remember. Help me sow dawn." They worked until their fingers cramped. The tapestry parted into 30 slivers, each depicting an aspect of sunrise, radiance at horizon, gilded clouds, birds etching sky. Lyra paired one especially bright piece for herself, a medallion of pure gold light, no larger than a coin. She grafted it over her heart, teeth gritted as blade met skin. The pain was birth and burial at once. She felt warmth unfurl beneath her ribs, an ember where none should exist. Next, she crafted envelopes from cured cave moth wings, slid a sunrise fragment into each, and sealed them with wax. 30 messengers, 30 seeds. Distribution required a festival, a crowd fluid enough that patterns could pass hands unnoticed. Fortunately, the Night of Echoes approached, when Kavakar celebrated its founding by trading tales at communal fires. Lyra donned a cloak of plain cloth to conceal her altered chest, and stepped into the tide of revelers carrying torches of bioluminescent kelp. Drum beats reverberated off limestone, making hearts syncopate. Vendors hawked fermented root ale and glowmelon slices. Anyone could have been watcher friend. Suspicion wasted time. She sought storytellers, people already hungry for narrative. One by one she brushed past them, slipping envelopes into pockets, satchels, hoods. A blind balladeer, a child acrobat, a miner whose back already bore a mural of caverns. With each delivery, Lyra's burden lightened. But sunrise is bright. Too much of it in darkness draws notice. As she placed the final envelope into a potter's basket, a gloved hand seized her wrist. Captain Vale of the Watch, his cheeks etched with authority lines, zigzags that signified permission to flay. "Pattern-monger's apprentice," he said, voice smooth. "We have questions." He marched her to the rotunda where Hollum still hung, his skin beginning to gray around iron cuffs. A crowd gathered. Public interrogations were theater. Vale gestured to guards who ripped Lyra's cloak, exposing the golden graft pulsing over her heart. Gasps rippled. The color was alien to Kavakar's palate. "Contraband confirmed," Vale declared. "Confess creators, accomplices, intent." Lyra's heart hammered, but the graft warmed her veins, lending courage like dawn banishing fog. She raised her voice. "Intent. To remember. To remind. We buried the sky beneath our feet, but it still waits. Look." She turned slowly, letting the crowd glimpse the impossible hue. Murmurs grew. Vale stepped closer. "Treacherous myths breed unrest. I'll carve that heresy out and hang it as warning." "You can try," Lyra said, "but the sky is already yours." At her words, cries erupted on the periphery. An old woman tore open her sleeve to reveal a strip of pink and saffron. A miner unbuttoned his collar. There, a shard of azure horizon. The blind balladeer lifted his bandage, revealing eyelids now tattooed with dawn. 30 bears emerged, seeds cracking stone. The courtyard blazed with scattered sunrise. Panic flickered across Vale's eyes, but he masked it with fury. "Arrest them all!" Guards advanced, yet hesitation slowed their steps. Wonder is a stubborn thing. It roots even in fear. Some guards stared at the new patterns, jaw slack. Lyra seized the moment. She climbed the pillar's dais, sliced Hollum's bonds with her scalpel. He collapsed, but lived. "Master," she whispered, pressing a sunrise shard into his trembling palm. "Forgive me." Pain glazed his gaze. Then recognition dawned. He clutched the shard to his chest. "We owe the dark nothing," he rasped. Together they faced the crowd. Vale drew his bone-handled knife and lunged. Rix, who had slipped in unseen, swung a staff, deflecting the blade. The captain stumbled. Sunrise bearers closed ranks around Lyra and Hollum. The courtyard shifted from audience to shield wall, unified by new currency worth more than pigment. Shared awakening. But Kavakar's watch did not rely solely on knives. Amplifiers, iron pipes embedded in walls, boomed in order, tunnels sealing. Gates to upper districts clanged as grates descended. If the rebels would not submit, they would be starved of supplies until surrender. Lyra scanned the luminous faces, felt tinder spark. Starvation had long been Kavakar's threat, yet now people tasted a different hunger, the ache for sky. "They cage us because we forget we can climb," she shouted toward the amplifiers. "Roots grow downward, But chutes seek light, so can we. Rix pointed to a ventilation shaft behind a statue. Leads upward to the forgotten shafts, he said. Legends told of mining tunnels that once reached all the way to surface before. The watch had sealed most, but stone remembered paths better than men. In minutes, chaos pivoted to exodus. Bearers guided children, elders, even some mutinous guards toward the shaft. Lyra and Hollum hobbled at the rear. Vale slashed at stragglers until a youth with dawn-inked fists disarmed him. The captain fell, ironically illuminated by a discarded torch that cast sunrise colors on his blank skin. The shaft narrowed into a spiral stair, chipped into rock, climbing up and up. Phosphor moss dimmed, replaced by currents of colder air. Some faltered, but when spirits flagged, bearers exposed their grafts. The glow of dawn coaxed tired feet onward. Hours blurred. They passed rusted lifts, skeletal carts, strata of forgotten epochs. At last the tunnel ended at a slab of rubble smelling faintly of moisture and rot. Daylight, if it existed, lay beyond. Many despaired. No tools, no strength. Hollum, coughing blood, nodded to Lyra. Your blade. Understanding dawned. The compressed journey strip Cell had paid. Hollum still clutched it. He pressed it to Lyra's forearm. Embed it. You'll need the knowledge. She hesitated only a heartbeat, then incised her skin and grafted the strip. Memories flooded, map after map of old shafts, hidden levers, weak seams. The traveler's perspective showed this very barrier, revealed where time had cracked it as fine as eggshell. Lyra guided the others, fingers finding a loose wedge. Together, 4 miners heaved. Stone groaned, then fractured, spilling gravel and a sliver of faint, colorless light. Not golden yet, but fresher than any air Kavakar had breathed. They widened the gap until bodies could squeeze through. One by one, they emerged into a cavern whose ceiling had collapsed centuries earlier, exposing a funnel of sky. Clouds, nocturnal and pale, drifted there, moonlit, yet promise that sun would follow. The rebels stood awestruck. Some wept, others laughed like infants tasting sound. Hollum collapsed, pulse a tremor. Lyra knelt, sunrise tinting her cheeks. Master, look. He did, eyes reflecting the pale halo overhead. He smiled, and that was his final graft, wonder etched in stillness. He died with dawn on his face. Grief rippled, but so did resolve. They built a funeral cairn of metamorphic slabs, sealing his body within. No watch would flay him now. In the east, darkness thinned. Out of habit, people searched themselves for patterns to offer. Yet as the first rays breached the funnel, they saw their skins ignite with true sunlight, colors no pigment could mimic. Currency rendered obsolete by reality. Children stretched arms, chasing beams. The blind balladeer unwrapped his eyes. Though vision failed him, warmth kissed his lids, and he sang of colors he felt. Miners marked fault lines where they could dig new habitats flooded with light. A woman sketched plans for mirrors to channel sun deeper below, so those who remained in Kavakar would share in dawn. Lyra stood at the rim of the funnel, bags beneath her eyes, chest aflame with gilded graft. She realized Cell's role clearer now. She had smuggled sunrise into Kavakar, trusting someone younger, unburdened by terror, to disseminate it. A seed needs soil. Cell's cloak of dead patterns had been mulch. Bootsteps approached. Rix offered a water skin. The watch will regroup, he said. They'll try to reclaim the tunnels. Lyra sipped, gaze scanning horizon, where mountains serrated the brightening sky. Then we must bring the sky to them, before they drag us back to shadow. She envisioned returning to Kavakar, not with weapons, but with mirrors, seedlings, and stories told under true light. Authority sustained itself by rationing hope. Flood the tunnels with dawn, and its leverage dissolves. Another figure climbed from the breach. Captain Vale, wrists bound by rope. Guards turned rebels, shoved him forward. His eyes narrowed against glare. On his blank chest, sunlight painted colors only visible now. He looked down as if discovering himself for the first time. Lyra approached, scalpel tucked away. "Patterns can be removed," she told him, "but now light writes directly on skin. How will you price that?" Vale had no answer. The sun tipped higher, sliding gold across stone, filling silence with birdsong faint but real. Memory no longer needed skin to survive. It radiated from the sky itself. Every heartbeat recorded it. Every breath traded it freely. The people of Kavakar, now half blinded by miracles, set to work expanding the breach. Some would remain above, founding settlements under open air. Others would descend again, armed with tools and, more potent, untradeable hope. They would carve windows where none existed, plant vines that climbed toward skylights, teach graft as art not currency. Lyra turned her face fully to the sunrise she had once only imagined. Its warmth seeped through her, meeting the febrile glow of the graft over her heart, until the two became indistinguishable. Skin patterns had been her livelihood, her language. Now she wondered if she would ever trade another. Some memories should not be owned, but shared, until ownership loses meaning. Still, she kept the journey strip beneath her flesh. Not for value, but as compass. Reminder that paths open when someone dares to carry forbidden light through darkness. She thought of Sel, somewhere in these mountains or deeper still, perhaps sowing more seeds. Lyra whispered a promise to the wind. We will not let them make us forget. Behind her, the first architecture of a new society rose. Tents stitched from trading cloths, mirrors propped on talus, laughter scaffolded on possibility. Hallam's cairn caught sunlight and cast a shadow like an arrow pointing back toward Kavakar, as if urging them not to abandon their roots entirely, but to carry illumination downward. Morning widened. A breath ago, dawn was contraband. Now it was merely the beginning of time.